Hello, my name is Alex. I study English literature. This is my story. I would like to tell you about my life in London and about my great teacher. So read my story and learn English with me. Chapter 1. My journey begins. It is a beautiful summer day. I am traveling on a train. There are two women sitting next to me on the train. They are sitting in front of me talking in English. I don't understand much. I am learning English, but I am a beginner. I don't know many words. I started talking to the women. I said some simple words in English. They understood what I wanted to say, and that made me happy. I said that I wanted to learn English. The women told me they were from England. They were going home after a conference. We talked for 10 minutes. Then we arrived at my station. I said goodbye. The women gave me their address and phone number. They said I could visit them in England. After that, we said goodbye. After meeting them, I worked on my English every day. I translated texts and watched movies in English. After 6 months, my English got better. It was good, but I wanted to learn more. I went to London to study English. When I arrived in London, I joined a school. My first lesson was on Monday. I met my teacher and the other students in the class. My teacher was a young and kind woman. She was very nice and friendly. We introduced ourselves, and then we started the lesson. Our teacher asked us a question. She wanted to know how much we already knew about the English language. She told us she had a simple and effective way to teach English. She said we didn't need to study or read textbooks. Instead, we needed to use English a lot in our daily lives. This method worked very well for me because I didn't like studying from textbooks. Sometimes I felt confused. Then we talked about what is important when learning a new language. Our teacher told us that a language is used to communicate. We need languages to talk to people. Languages help us share our ideas and feelings. So when you learn a new language, the best way is to use it. Use the language to share your thoughts and talk with others. Our teacher said, "This is what we will do in our course. We will speak and use English a lot." Many students try to remember new words and study grammar rules, but they don't use English to speak. They study about the language, but they don't use the language. Of course, there is a big difference. You need to learn new words and grammar, but you don't have to study them from books. You need to practice them every day. In this course, I wanted to show you a simple and effective way to learn vocabulary and grammar. I liked what our teacher said. Our lesson continued. We talked about our hobbies and what we like to do in our free time. We spoke in pairs or with our teacher. I enjoyed the classes. I was really happy. This way of learning worked very well for me. Chapter 2. How I learned vocabulary. I went to school again on Tuesday. One of the students asked a question that was interesting to me. She asked, "What is the best way to learn new words?" Our teacher said there are many things you can do to learn new words, but the best way is reading. When people read, they learn new words in their language. They learn twice as fast as people who don't read. It's good to read for at least 30 minutes every day. I want to show you what to do to get the most benefit from reading. First, it's important that the book or text you read is interesting to you. You need to enjoy reading the book. The book can be a nice story, or it can be fiction or nonfiction. Whatever interests you. Don't read a text that isn't interesting to you. If you don't know many words, you might feel frustrated. You always want to enjoy everything you do while learning the language. It's important to choose a text that is interesting and also okay for your level. When you read the text and find a word you don't understand, you should use a dictionary to find the word. Look at the meaning of the word. This will help you understand the text better, and your knowledge will grow. You don't need to write the word down. The word will stay in your mind naturally. You will always remember the meaning of the word when you see it again. Every time you find a new word, do the same thing. Reading has another great advantage. When you read, you not only learn new words, but you also learn how each word connects with other words in the sentence. You can see how to use the words correctly. This way of learning new words is very effective. Try it, and you will see how fast you can learn new words. Then we continued with the lesson. We talked about the situation in England and the best jobs for students. This was good for me because I wanted to get a job. I wanted to do something in my free time after school. I asked other students if they knew where I could find a job. They told me I should go to a job center. The job center has many jobs, especially for students. This was good for me. I was happy to know where I could find a job. When my day at school was over, I went to the job center. I didn't know what job I could do. So I asked the lady at the job center, "What is the best job center? What is the best job for a student?" The lady told me they had some good jobs for students. She told me I could work as a cleaner or a waitress in a cafe. I told the lady I had no experience with these jobs. She said my English was good enough to work at the cafe. The training was easy, and I would have more chances to speak English than if I worked as a cleaner. She told me I could start my job on Thursday. This was great for me. I was happy to have a job where I could practice English. If you want to learn new words, read for 30 minutes every day. On Wednesday, I went to school again. There is one student in the class who is quieter than the others. He is from South Korea. When our teacher asked if we had any questions, this student from Korea said he had one. He said he had a big problem with pronunciation. He knew his pronunciation was not very good, but he didn't know how to improve it. He didn't speak much because he didn't want others to hear his bad pronunciation. He said he reads and watches films in English a lot. He understands very well, but he also wants to improve his speaking. He asked if there was something he could do to get better at pronunciation. When our teacher heard this, she said, "Okay, I will tell you something about pronunciation and how to practice." She said, "I will also teach you some techniques to help all of you get better at pronunciation. First, we need to understand why students have problems with pronunciation. When we speak, we need to move our mouths and use the muscles in our mouth. We all do that. The problem is, when you speak English, sometimes you use your mouth muscles the same way you use them in your native language. This makes your pronunciation different from the pronunciation of native speakers. This happens to many students learning English. Almost everyone has a little different pronunciation than they should. But this is not a big problem because usually people can understand what you want to say. Even if your pronunciation is not perfect, you can still work on it and make it better using a great technique that can help you a lot. This technique is called shadowing. The technique is very simple. When you do shadowing, you copy the sounds you hear. When children learn their first language, they learn by copying. They copy their parents again and again. One day, their pronunciation becomes perfect. If you can learn English pronunciation the same way, this is what you can do. Take some videos or audio recordings that are not too fast and that you can understand well. Listen and copy what you hear. That's all. Then our teacher went to YouTube.com and searched for the shadowing technique. She found good videos where the shadowing technique was shown very well. We watched the video and then we all tried shadowing for about 3 minutes. After that, our teacher told us that shadowing is also good when you are preparing for a presentation in English and want to have good pronunciation. Before your presentation, you can go to a place where you are alone and do shadowing for about 10 minutes. You will see how much it helps you have better pronunciation during the presentation. This was very interesting. For me, I had never heard of this technique before. When the lesson finished, I went to the school reception. I asked the lady if there were any sports activities at school. I wanted to do some sports in England. The lady at the reception said, yes, we have a table tennis team and a football team. The football team has training today at 5:00. I was very happy because sports are very important in my life. I went to the football team's training. I met many players from different countries like Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. I liked the training. I was very happy that my time in England started well. I have a great teacher. I also made some new friends from my football team. Also, tomorrow I am starting my job. If you want to have good pronunciation, repeat after native speakers. On Thursday, I went to school again. We had a new student in our class. Her name is Elizabeth, and she is from Italy. At the beginning of the lesson, my teacher asked Elizabeth some questions. My teacher knows Elizabeth because she visited her class 1 year ago. It was a class for beginners, and it was only for 2 weeks during the summer holiday. When Elizabeth speaks, she speaks beautifully. Her pronunciation is very good, and she is fluent. My teacher was very happy, and she told Elizabeth, your school in Italy must be very good. Elizabeth said, I don't go to any school. I learn English at home. I use techniques I learned from you. I do a lot of reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud. I try to think more in English than in Italian. This is how I work on my English. The 2 weeks I spent last summer in your class helped me a lot. You showed me the way, and now I know how to work on my English every day. This is why I wanted to join your class again. 1 year ago, I was a beginner, and now I can speak English. I want to learn from you again. My teacher was very happy when she heard these words. She appreciated Elizabeth for her hard work. This is all very interesting for me. I already know about reading, and I also know the shadowing technique. But Elizabeth also talks about thinking aloud, and I didn't know what it was. So I asked our teacher, what is thinking aloud? Our teacher replied, it is a very effective technique. You have to have a strong motivation to learn English if you want to get benefits from this technique. It is also good to know that for some people, this technique may seem a little crazy, but when you start to think aloud, your English can improve very fast. I said, I have a strong motivation. I don't care if the technique. I said, it's crazy, but if it helps, I want to learn it. Can you teach us this technique? Our teacher said, okay, it is actually very simple. You think in your native language all day, all the time. That's normal. Now you can start to think in English. When you start to think in English, you can think aloud. You simply say aloud what you think. That's all. I said it's very simple. Why is it very effective? Our teacher replied, maybe you can ask Elizabeth. She uses this technique. Maybe she can tell you more about it. Then our teacher asked Elizabeth if it was okay for her to speak about her experience with thinking aloud. Elizabeth said it was not a problem. She said when I started with this technique, it wasn't easy. Elizabeth said, I started with very simple sentences. For example, I can speak English. It is good that I can speak English. I want to be better. I need to practice every day. I don't know many words, but I can use these words. I can say my ideas with these words. I can say my ideas with these words. I can do this. This is great. The sentences were really simple, but at the beginning, there was one problem. My thinking in Italian was long and complicated. I was not able to say it in English exactly, but I could say it in Italian. I needed to find a simpler way to speak in English. To think in simple English was the hardest part. But after some time, Elizabeth said, it became normal for me to think in English. Then something interesting happened. I met a man from Australia. He was on holiday in Italy. I was still a beginner, but we started to speak English. I could see that I was able to speak with him without having problems. My sentences were simple and short, but I was able to speak. I didn't translate in my head from Italian to English. After the meeting with the man from Australia, I started to use thinking aloud more. This technique helped me a lot with my speaking. I still use it every day. It is really a very effective technique. Our teacher thanked Elizabeth for sharing her experience with thinking aloud. Elizabeth said, I wanted to use this technique because I also wanted to get better at speaking. When you want to speak English fluently, think aloud. My advice is, when you want to learn English, read, listen, think, and speak. Do each activity for 30 minutes every day. Part 2. Hello. I hope you are feeling well. First, I want to remind you that there is part 1 of this story. If you have not watched it yet, visit my channel and watch it so you can understand the whole story well. My name is Alex. I am a student of English. This is my story. I want to tell you about my life in London. I want to tell you about my fantastic teacher. You can read my story. You can learn English with me. Chapter 1. How I Learn Grammar. After school, I go to the cafe where my job training starts. I don't know what to expect. I have no experience. I'm not sure if I can do this job. When I come to the cafe, I'm very surprised. It is a modern cafe that sells coffee, tea, chocolate cakes, and sandwiches. My boss is only 25 years old. She started to work at the cafe 2 years ago. She has a lot of experience and knows everything perfectly. She shows me how to prepare coffee, how to wash the dishes, and how to wash the dishes, and how to deal with customers. It is all new for me. I remember only about 20 of what she tells me. But then she lets me do the work and she corrects me when I make a mistake. She is very friendly and I learn fast. After the first day at work, I am very tired, but I am happy that I have a job. The next day is Friday and I go to school again. One student asks an interesting question. Sometimes when I speak, I am not sure if I speak correctly. I am not sure if I use the correct grammar. Can you help me with what to do if I use the correct grammar? Can you help me with what to do if I want to learn grammar? Our teacher says there are two groups of students. Some students study English because they want to be able to speak. Some students study English because they want to pass an exam. For each group, the situation is different. First, I will speak about the students who need English for speaking. If this is you, you don't have to study grammar a lot. When you learn your native language, you also learn it without studying grammar. You can learn English grammar naturally by using the language. The best way to learn grammar naturally is by reading a lot. Books are written in good grammar. When you read, you will learn grammar in the context of the whole sentence. I also recommend shadowing. When you do shadowing, you practice the correct grammar. You do it naturally. You don't have to try to remember anything. You only copy sentences with correct grammar. If you need English for speaking but also want to study grammar, you can visit Grammarinus.com. This website shows what grammar is important for different levels of English. You can find the most important grammar rules for speaking there. The second group of students are those who study English. To pass an exam, if you are one of these students, I recommend studying specifically for this exam. You can take the versions of this exam from past years, if possible, and train with them. If you are one of these students, I recommend studying specifically for this exam. You can take the versions of this exam from past years, if possible, and train with them. Of course, your exam will be a little different, but the structure is usually the same or very similar. From my point of view, the versions of the exam from past years are good training materials. Then, I recommend going to the exam only when your results in the training materials are good enough for you to pass the exam successfully. The student says, "Did I answer your question?" "Yes." "Thank you," says the student. "This is good news. I don't like studying grammar. I learn English because I want to be able to speak. I don't need to pass any exam. I am happy that I don't have to study grammar much. I like reading, and I am happy that I can learn grammar by reading books. After the lesson, I go to the website Grammarinus.com. It is really a nice website. There are grammar rules with examples for each level. They have 3 levels, 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000 words. In the afternoon, I go to my work. It is my second day and I can already do a lot of things by myself, but my boss helps me when I need it. I see that my work is not very difficult. Also, I can practice English when I speak to our customers. Moral: when you want to have good grammar, read a lot. Chapter 2: How I Test My English. It is Monday again, and I go to my school. Our teacher asks us what we did over the weekend. I say that I was at work on Saturday. I say that I can already do my work well. I say that I can already do my work well. I say that I am happy when I can speak to our customers. When I speak, one of the girls in the class asks me, "What happened to your voice? You sound very different from what we heard last week. Your pronunciation is very good." As I smile and I say, "Thank you." I use shadowing on Saturday evening after my work and the whole Sunday. I try to speak like a native speaker. I know that it is not perfect, but I also see a big change in my pronunciation. Our teacher asks if other students tried to practice shadowing. 3 students say yes. One of them is the student from South Korea. He also likes this technique. One student says that she tried the technique, but her mouth was in pain after 5 minutes of shadowing, and she stopped. She also says that she wasn't always able to repeat everything because the recording was very fast. Our teacher says, "Thank you for trying out this technique. If you do shadowing for the first time and your mouth is in pain after 5 minutes, you are doing it correctly. You need to train your muscles for this new way of speaking. It is like going to the gym for the first time. Your muscles can hurt if they are not trained. If the muscles in our mouth hurt, you can take a break after 5 minutes of shadowing, and you can continue a bit later. With every 5 minutes of practice, your pronunciation gets better." Shadowing also has other advantages. You practice the correct pronunciation in English, and you also practice other things like intonation, rhythm, and connecting words in whole sentences. I know that at the beginning, the recording can sometimes be very fast for you. If this happens, you can repeat only the first or the last word in the sentence. With practice, you will be able to repeat more. I say that it is true. On Saturday, when I started with shadowing, it was difficult for me, but on Sunday evening, it was easy to repeat what I heard. Then I have a question for our teacher. I tell her that I looked at grammar and levels. Come, the website is interesting, but I don't know what level is for me because I don't know how many words I know. Our teacher asks other students if they know how many words they know in English. It is interesting to see that nobody knows. We know that we are intermediate students, but we don't know how many words we know. Our teacher says there is a website for people who study foreign languages. You can do a test there and find out how many words you know. The test has only 2 steps, and it is really simple. The test has only 2 steps, and it is really simple. Name of the website is Test Languages. Com. You can take the test every month and see how much you improve during that month. If you want, you can now take your smartphones and go to that website and do the test. I am really interested in knowing how many words I know, so I take the test immediately. I find out that I know 100 words in English. Most of the students know between 2,000 and 2,200 words. Only Monica and the boy from South Korea know 2,500 words. Our teacher says, so you can see that when you go to Grammar in Levels Com, you should already know grammar from level 2. You can start using grammar from level 3 because level 3 is for students who know between 2,000 and 3,000 words. Moral: Test your progress every month. On Tuesday, I go to school again. One student asks our teacher an interesting question. She says, I want to practice speaking with people around me, but I don't want to make mistakes. I don't want to look stupid. Can you help me? Our teacher says making mistakes is a very interesting topic. There are a lot of opinions on this topic. I want to show you what I believe is the best to do. I have a lot of experience with this because I also learn new languages. For example, now I'm learning Spanish. When I speak Spanish, I don't care if I make mistakes or not. The reason why I don't care about mistakes is simple. When I learned my native language, I didn't care about making mistakes. Mistakes weren't important for me. My main goal. When I use any language, my goal is to say my ideas. That's all. I know that when I read a lot, speak, and do shadowing, my Spanish will get better and better. I know this may seem very simple, but it's my opinion. This is what I learned after many years of teaching and learning languages. It works very well for me and many of my students. When I speak, I only concentrate on speaking in the moment. I know 1,500 words in Spanish. It's the level of a 2-year-old children. Make a lot of mistakes when they speak, but they don't care about their mistakes. When they speak, but they don't care about their mistakes. They continue using their native language, and when they are 3 years old, they make very few mistakes, and when they are 4 years old, they usually speak very well. You can do the same now. Most of you know about 2,000 words, so it is absolutely okay to make mistakes from time to time. When you continue using English, there will be fewer and fewer and fewer mistakes in your speaking. It is not possible to go to a higher level if you don't make mistakes while practicing English. It is okay not to be perfect. Perfection comes with practice. All people who started learning English started from the beginning, from level 0. Learning languages is like learning to play a musical instrument. It needs to be trained. When you start your training, it's not perfect at the beginning and you make mistakes. This is normal. Take it as a necessary part of your learning process. If you don't go through this period of making mistakes, you can't get to higher levels. When you continue to use English, the mistakes will step by step go away. If you want to make fewer and fewer mistakes, do a lot of reading and shadowing. When you read, you can read aloud, which can also help you make fewer mistakes in real conversations. Care only about exchanging ideas, and don't worry about making mistakes when you speak. You practice turning your ideas into words. You don't learn grammar or words. You have other activities for it. Don't worry. Everybody who learns a foreign language makes mistakes sometimes. Famous people, bosses of big companies, or politicians make mistakes too. When you listen to these people on TV, you see that they don't care about mistakes. They care about what is important, and that is saying their ideas. You can do the same. Does it make sense? The girl says, yes, thank you. Moral: if you don't want to make mistakes, do a lot of reading and shadowing. Advice: to enhance your language skills in English, dedicate 30-40 minutes each day to reading, listening, and speaking. Immerse yourself in diverse materials to boost comprehension and fluency effectively.